Hey, I want to talk today about how you can move forward from the coronavirus pandemic and actually still have a fantastic rest of the year. However bleak and dark these times feel for you, maybe you've lost your job, maybe you've lost a loved one, maybe you're just in a state of panic and not sure how to come back up to the surface to move forward. I want to share with you my journey from rock bottom and the steps needed to prosper in the new post COVID-19 world. My name's Alan Miles. I am the CEO of Team Miles, Pomelo Culture, and an official Cardone licensee. I specialize in helping people to rebuild their businesses, launch new businesses, and rebuild their body to achieve the body and the life of their dreams. If we rewind the clock 10 years back to 2010, I'll be honest, this was probably one of the worst and lowest moments of my entire life. Here we were 2 years past the financial crisis, and I'd actually built a business through the financial crisis of 2008, and we were coming out the other side when all of a sudden my mum died. The very next year, my brother died, and I can honestly say I hit rock bottom. I went into a place of literal shock and despair. I used up all of the spare money that I had, all of my savings. I stopped working on my business. I literally was at the doors of bankruptcy. I was emotionally, physically, and mentally done. I was just done. And at the time all of this was happening, I also simultaneously broke up with the mother of my first two children. And when I say I was done, I couldn't have been more done. I literally felt like a complete failure. My business was failing. I was failing as a dad. I was failing as a partner. I was failing as a human being. But there was still something that was buried deep inside of me. It was a flame at points. Sometimes it was just an ember, but it was there. And after a few more months had passed and I'd spent some time trying to come to terms with this world that I now lived in without the two people that I loved, much like how many of you are having to come to terms with a new life post coronavirus. I didn't have the success of my business anymore. The fancy car that I once had, that had gone. The fancy riverfront apartment, that was no more. I was now living in a 0-bedroom studio, fighting to see my children when I could, with literally no idea how I was going to make money. But I sat there and I remember thinking of a time of when I was a kid and I talked to my mum. And me and my mum, we did a lot of things together because my dad, he died when I was very little. So my mum meant a lot to me, but I used to sit there talking to her about the future, like all little kids do with their mum. And I'd talk about the future and how I was going to be rich and how I was going to be a gazillionaire, a number that didn't even exist. And I'd buy her, when I was rich, I would buy her either a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. And I would always ask her, which one would you prefer? Would you like the Lamborghini or would you like the Ferrari? And I had two toy cars, obviously being a little boy, growing up through the late 80s, early 90s, a little Ferrari and a Lamborghini Countach, little toy cars, typical red Ferrari and a yellow Lambo. And I'd just sit there and imagine what it would be like to own one. But as a little kid, I'd also sit there and think what it would be like to be financially free. Obviously, as a small kid, I didn't know that's what I was thinking of. I just thought, what would it be like to have so much money that you could just do anything? And I always imagined being like Scrooge McDuck from DuckTales, for those of you that were a 90s kid, you know, swimming in the coins. He had his vault that he'd open the door and he'd dive into the coins, and he'd swim in his coins. Anyway, my point is that I had this burning desire, even in my darkest moments, that I wanted to be something. Like I still wanted to be able to have it all. I wanted to get back to that little boy who was hungry to have it. And at points, this flame nearly went out, but it didn't. It sat in there somewhere. It was lost, it was trapped, it was buried, but it was still in there. And the struggle that I went through in the outside world, like over those few years and also the years that were to come, they were very public. All of my friends and family saw. I ended up taking a job cleaning train carpets at night just so I could start to earn some money again. It was actually pretty fun. But very quickly, my mind started to fall back together. Like, it started to all come back together. And I said, like, I need to get back into the business world. I need to start doing something more. I need to push myself more. And I did try to resurrect my business, but I was doing that in the daytime, working on the trains at nighttime. I was literally working every minute of every day, and my heart wasn't really in it. And that, as I say, if you do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, well, that's the definition of insanity. So my girlfriend of the time, she told me, just give up on this dream. It's a stupid dream. You don't need to be rich. You don't need to have all this stuff that you think you need. It's not going to happen. So I reluctantly listened, and I closed the business down. And I then decided, look, I need to go and apply for jobs at least. So I went out and I applied for jobs in an industry that I had a skill set in. Within 48 hours, I had a job. It was a terrible job, but I had one. And thankfully, because I'd applied for lots of jobs, I'd taken lots of action when applying for these jobs. I had another interview after one day in this job, and thankfully I got offered that job, and I joined that company. I spent 5 years with that company, and like, bear with me. I know I'm talking about some stuff here that you may be thinking, how is this relevant to me? This has got nothing to do with coronavirus. I promise you, just listen on, and it's all going to make sense. But I didn't just take this job for the sake of it, but I had a plan, and I was going to learn everything I possibly could. I was going to cover myself in knowledge about this industry with the aim that at some point I was going to return to running my own business. I had no idea how. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I started to take action. I started to focus on one thing at a time. And there were some really good moments. Like, it was good. I was earning good money again. I started to feel some level of satisfaction again. I started to feel happy, have some self-worth. These things are important. These things are important to you right now. If you've lost your job because of redundancy, if you've lost somebody you love and you don't know how to piece your world back together, you have to just start trying to take some action to move forward. I was able to start showing my children a good life again, meaning that we didn't have to have beans on toast for dinner for the 5th night in a row. Like, I could buy them brand new toys for their birthday and for Christmas, which in previous years I'd not been able to do. I could pay the bills without worrying. I could go to the shop and buy food, any food that I wanted, without worrying, is my debit card going, or my credit card going to be accepted? Like, internally, like, externally, things were now starting to look good, but internally, I was still filled with conflict and doubt. Yeah, I started to feel good at moments, but I had this conflict and this doubt, and I knew I needed to do this, but I was scared. I was shy. I was embarrassed of all my past failings. I was worried that they were going to repeat themselves, but I started to force myself to do things, like I said, and one thing at a time, because lots of really small actions compounded together lead to big actions. So if you were sat there right now in neutral, not knowing what to do, feeling lost, like somebody's lifted the anchor and you were floating out to sea, you just need to take some action. Any action. It doesn't matter if the action is not correct. As long as it is in the general direction of where you want to go, you just need to take one step. One tiny baby step. And if you can't take a step, you just need to crawl. Sometimes I would sit at my desk like a rabbit in the headlights and I'd have a panic attack. Like, not all panic attacks are dramatic, require an ambulance or anything like that. Sometimes you just sit there, frozen to the spot, unable to move, your mind racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And I just stare. But the thing is, I continue to force myself to do things. Was this process pleasant? No, of course it was not pleasant every single day. Like, I didn't enjoy it every single day. Yes, it had good moments, and yes, I could see I was moving in the right direction, but it was hard. I had to grow. I had to learn. I had to develop. I had to understand what was going on, where I had gone wrong, how I could improve. But I started to see results. I started to get traction, and in turn, I started to believe that things could genuinely be good again. And to be honest, life stayed like this for a while. It wasn't some overnight success story where money rains from the skies. And I now take you outside to show you my Lamborghini. That's not this story. Like, this is my real life, not a hired Lamborghini story of some in somebody else's house. This is my life, and like my life stayed like this for a while. I moved companies. Within 12 months of moving companies, I thought I would made it. I owned 50% of the business. I bought half of the business. I thought, yes, Alan, you have made it. Welcome to the promised land. I was earning really good money at this point. Again, I had a nice car again, I had a team working for me. Everything we touched at the time turned to gold. 2016, 2017, and 2018 were three of the best years of my life. And I still wasn't happy because I hated the industry I worked in. I actually hated this company that I owned. So despite the fact that my life was now good and I had a lot of the things that I really wanted, actually, I was miserable. And it took a few more years. So it wasn't until we got to 2019 that I hit a wall so hard that I finally saw some sense. My star employee turned around on the 1st of January 2019. I was there like, okay, I'm going to make this a good year. This is going to be a year. I'm going to find my passion that I once had for this industry. I'm going to find it again. And she quit. And I was fucked. Like, because I had found a way for this company to be successful, which required me to not have to do most of the stuff that I didn't like. And now I was faced with having to do all of those things again until I could find a replacement, which I couldn't do. So here I was at a breaking point again. I was living a fantastic life. I had a good amount of money. I had a lovely life. I owned my own home. I was married to literally the love of my life. We had a family now of 5 kids. We holidayed frequently. Like, life was good, but my business, it was hitting a wall. I could see it was hitting a wall and I couldn't put the brakes on. I didn't know how to turn it around because I didn't want to be there. That's the bottom line. I didn't want to be there. And that showed up in my actions. No matter how hard I grinded, I didn't want to be there. But the thing is, I refused to go back to where I had been. I categorically refused. Like, every morning I would wake up and I was not happy with what I was doing, but I would go out, I would do what I need to do to make it work, until one day I had a gigantic epiphany and everything started to fall into place for me. I was going to go and do something I'd never done before, and I was going to launch a new business completely on my own, and I was going to risk everything to go and do it. And this was a scary move, so I had to make sure I was prepared to some degree, but I took the jump and I went to work in a field that I'd never worked in. I'd been passionate about for years, but I'd never worked in. And I actually built a health and wellness business based on my own experience of losing over 100 pounds in weight and having run several businesses in the past. I invested so heavily in my learning. And beyond that, I invested heavily in surrounding myself with the right people who were ahead of me, people who could see things before I could see them, because that shortens the learning gap. It allows you to accelerate your growth. It allows you to be around winners, which in turn, if you take that on board, it allows you to win. So that roaring fire that I had when I was a little boy, that awoke. It came back with vigor, with passion. And things, they just started happening because I was doing something I was interested in. I was doing something that intrigued me. I was doing something that at moments I absolutely loved. And it's important to find that balance of, you're not going to love what you do every single day. There's always going to be parts of a job or a business that you don't enjoy. You have to be inspired by your business to want to move forward. And things just started happening. And I took this business from $0 to $10,000 a month in 3 months. sold my shares in the other business because I wanted to focus on this full time. I was like, yes, now we're talking. Now I found what I want to do. I'm going to put my foot to the floor and I'm going to go. January started 2020 and it was an okay month. It was solid. And then we arrived at COVID. Coronavirus came and hit me like a brick. And I got scared, really scared. I was vulnerable. I took a moment and I took a beat. And I genuinely thought, why is this happening right now? And I thought for a moment, I could sit here and have a little pity party. And the feelings came back that I'd felt 10 years before when everything fell apart. And it started to bubble to the surface. And I thought to myself, am I going to fail again? Am I actually going to fail again? I can't fail again. I can't let this happen. I have more to lose now than ever before. And then everything clicked. Everything I'd learned over the past 10 years, and in particular over the past 2 years, it all fell beautifully into place. April 2020, so last month, when the world was on its knees, was the best month of the year for me. April 2020, I helped more people with their health and their wellness than I'd helped the other 3 months of this year. April 2020 presented me with my perfect opportunity. I finally codified it, distilled it, brought it to steps of how you can create your own business, how you can create your own financial freedom, the exact steps needed to launch an offer like I launched. And I have now helped a handful of people launch their businesses successfully in the worst economic time of our entire lives. And today I sit here and I have an offer for you. If you are struggling to understand how you're going to come out of this tailspin, if you are unsure how to survive 2020 financially, mentally, or physically, like you've gained some weight through this lockdown, financially, your accounts are a mess, mentally, you're all over the place. You're just sitting there and you want to cry because you're scared. Like the bills are piling up, you're not earning any money anymore, or your earnings have been capped. You're scared with what this means for your kids, for your family. They look to you for support, for guidance, and you don't know where you are because you're lost at sea. What is this stress of this situation doing to your marriage or to your relationship or to your friendships? I want to invite you to a free webinar on Wednesday, the 20th of May, where I will show you the blueprint that I have personally used to get my life back on track. All of the lessons that I have learned over the past 10 years of my life that have allowed me to thrive through this difficult period. It is my duty. I believe it to be my duty to help as many people as I possibly can. And I want to make sure that you can get to the other side of this and genuinely flourish. Like my relationship with my wife is flourishing right now. My relationship with my children's is a blessing to have them home extra so that I can spend more time with them. Financially, the business is doing fantastically well, and I'm living a very nice life. And I'm taking massive leaps, and I'm positioning myself ready for the biggest 12, 24, 36 months of my entire life. And I want to show you how to do exactly that. This webinar is free. It is on Wednesday, the 20th of May at 8 o'clock p.m. UK time. That's 3 p.m. Eastern time or 12 p.m. lunchtime if you are Pacific time. So that is Wednesday, the 20th of May, 8 p.m. UK time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, 12 p.m. Pacific time. I promise you, this is going to be absolutely loaded with content for you to actually be able to leave the webinar at the end of it with actionable steps to put in place to make your life better. Click the link in the description to secure your space. Make sure that you learn how to come out of this disaster situation in a way that allows you to make the rest of 2020 a fantastic year. Because guys, look, we will get through this. And when we do get through this, we will be bigger, better, stronger than before. And I promise you, if you stick with me, you join me on this webinar, you are going to remember Wednesday, the 20th of May, as the moment your life changed forever. I'll see you on Wednesday, guys.